And Ketan, I found this story interesting because it seems as though the justice system, let me just say the justice system, has found another way to cause itself to have to pay out money after, either losing a case or being sued because how a case was handled. And this situation, highlighted in the daily papers, a businessman in 2015, police officers entered the business Super Wholesalers and Distributors Limited, owned by Primnath Jilal. I am sorry if I got that name wrong. They entered his business searching for illegal firearms and ammunition, which they did not find. And the gentleman was not charged for anything with regards to what they were searching for. But what they did find was a large quantity of cash, which was found in 20 different currencies. So they proceeded to confiscate that. And then apparently the police obtained orders under the Procedures of Criminal Act to keep the cash pending further investigation. Then the orders expired in 2017, so they were told return the cash. But what happened was they tried to return the cash all in TT. Remember, it was 20 currencies.
They tried to return it in TT via check from central bank.
Right. And so recently, the judge basically said, whoa, you have denied the person the right to his assets because he had it in however many different currencies. Whether it was convenient to him or not, that's what he owed. So he had intentions for that, you have denied him that. It has to be returned in that way. Then you have to give him $50,000 in compensation just for the whole situation. Then you have to pay his costs. Then on top of that, you have to pay, and this is just by the way, if you hold cash and then it's found that the seizure is not, you can't keep it. It's not a legal criminal confiscation, right? Basically, he's found not guilty. Well, you have to pay interest 7.5%. So I just found this is a beautiful way to kind of not get anything done, deprive a businessman of his working capital that he may or may not have needed for his business, and then on top of that have to pay. It's not necessarily, I don't know if it'll work out $100,000 plus. It's not the heights of award payments, but it's just one more check going out extra that and I do wonder, the whole fact that they decided to hold it in TT currency, right? That leads me to have questions, but I'll leave you to give me your first impression.
Well, I'm looking at it from two sides. One, crikey, what are you doing with 18 forms of foreign currency on your premises?
19.
Don't get me wrong. I understand with the foreign exchange shortage that we've been experiencing, mostly for US dollars. And US dollars will also affect our ability to have other foreign currencies.
I do remember speaking to a friend who has an import-export business. Getting any kind of foreign exchange was stress at that time. So that could be part of the reason. It
could be part of the reason, but that to me, don't get me wrong, it's a supplier's business. But I too would be skeptical. But there are processes to deal with these things. And if that was not handled according to the law, then it's unfortunate, because who are the lawyers or the attorneys that are advising the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service? Because they said they utilized the Procedures of Crime Act in order to seize the money. But when that expired, because they couldn't find anything, for whatever reason they couldn't find anything. By the way, just bear in mind, they used a warrant to search for illegal arms.
Exactly.
Right, on this individual's premises.
Exactly.
They didn't find any illegal arms, but they grew very suspicious when they saw these 19 forms of currency. They confiscated it. Procedures of Crime Act was used. When that expired, they tried to return it via TT dollars. That's one way to get foreign exchange into the legal system. Confiscate it, put it in the system. We'll give you back in TT dollars. And then on top of all of that, the amount of fees the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service now have to fork out, again, not on behalf of the service, but money that comes from our pockets at the end of the day. I think the greatest investment is having the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service take your money and then you double it 5 years later.
Basically, because 7.5% of 1 million plus the 50,000 plus legal costs. Well, I guess, legal costs is money spent. You're not actually keeping that, but it's money the state has to pay. But here's the thing. So it contended, this is the state, that based on the general wording, the Comptroller of Accounts is entitled to select a method that is reasonable and practicable and which conforms with its own processes and procedures. This is to say how they store the money, right? And then return the funds. My thing is though, why would you think that it's reasonable to confiscate 20 different forms of currency, so that's 19 foreign currencies, and you're going to store it in TT dollars, right? Why is that reasonable? Because the judge, at least on principle, like maybe not in terms of law, but on basic principle, I believe is right. His assets were in foreign currencies. Now, we don't know what the amount is, and I mean, obviously, maybe if you just look at his account, if you just audit his accounts, you could trace these foreign cash transactions.
Not necessarily.
Not necessarily, I know. That's why I said maybe, right? But at the end of the day, it's his assets. And since you to some extent, you have a responsibility to hold the assets in a manner that it could be returned as is. And this is not the first time we've heard of things just not necessarily with cash. I believe a backhoe was confiscated from a gentleman, and when he received it, however many years later, it was in a very poor working condition, which means it's almost as though somebody went and scavenged a backhoe that was held in police custody for parts or what have you, or there was no security for wherever it was impounded. Now, the fact that this is cash, it makes me wonder if anyone was hoping that the cash, when translated into TT currency, would essentially just get lost in the system of the comptroller's accounts. And then it would be very easy to siphon some of that off. That's my speculation. That's a question. It's not necessarily the case. So, but I mean, the way how the case is handled to me is a bit suspicious. What was the plan here? How is it that you could have a warrant for one thing and then decide, oh, we didn't find that, but we're still going to go after you for something else?
It's not suspicious to me. And the reason being is because, unfortunately, again, I say, who are the attorneys advising police officers? Are police officers aware or fully aware of the law? Police officers are not lawyers. So you would assume that they have some sort of legal aid in times. It's not suspicious to me because too many times do instances of police operations or police conduct where it comes to warrants or conducting searches and confiscating items deemed to be suspicious. Not necessarily illegal, but suspicious. That's come up so many times before. And there's even something that I can point at here. Because if you're going on a compound searching for illegal arms, but you end up seizing cash, do you recall a couple months ago an issue was raised where in East Trinidad there were a number of police officers who were more or less taxing businesses?
Yep.
There is a possibility that this was some form of taxation, a possibility that we should not rule out. And the legal means was to actually get central bank to write that check. So also on what grounds? To me, I need a better understanding of the law as it relates to cash seized. And because I know sometimes with dormant accounts, it goes to central bank and it's put back into the system.
Right.
But this is not a dormant account. So under what proceeds, under what law, under what advice did central bank actually issue that check?
I would be willing to accept that it was a good faith investigation, but if it was on 2 years, if you held the money for a few months and you did investigations, why would it take 2 years? Like, if you can't find something, at some point it's diminishing returns, you're not going to find anything. And then, of course, how the return was attempted to be handled.